Hi, this is the first in a series of videos on procurement frameworks and why you should care as an agile or digital agency. This presentation is going to cover the basics of frameworks. So roughly, what are they, why they're so good, but why they're not the answer to everything, and why you need to know how you get on a framework and how you can still work with frameworks even if you're not on one. Hi, I'm Ren Reynolds. At Cabinet Office I created G-Cloud. I was part of the early stages and more recent stages of the DOS framework. I created frameworks for the BBC. I've worked for the Home Office, Foreign Office and consulted across the public sector. This video is brought to you by Buying Machine, and we have a sister company, You Say Tomato, that's an agile consultancy. What is a framework? In simple terms, it's an easy way for the public sector to buy things. And that means, as a supplier, it's an easy way for you to sell things to the public sector. By things, I mean products or services or both. The legal structure that is a framework was set up under the EU, but they're still used extensively across the whole of the UK public sector. You'll hear them called different things: framework, procurement framework, framework agreement, framework contract. It's all the same thing, roughly speaking. You might hear it said that a framework is like an approved supplier list. I think more accurately, it's an agreement to make agreements, potentially. Okay, there's a lot there. Let's unpack each bit of it. An agreement. It's a contract, sometimes quite a long contract, 60 pages or more, to make agreements. So by this, and we'll get into the details of this, it's a way to form further agreements within the structure which has been set up by the framework. Potentially. I say potentially because the buyer doesn't ever have to buy anything under a framework. It could be pretty pointless setting it up if they didn't, but they're not compelled to. And if you're on the framework, you may never win any business under the framework. But if you're not on the framework, it's a bit more difficult ever to win business, so they're worth looking at. Why are frameworks a good thing? Almost all public sector organisations use frameworks to buy things. A huge number of contracts are established under frameworks. And they can be one to many. And what I mean by that is that typically one department will set up a framework, but they can allow other departments or public sector bodies to be a part of it. There can be a single supplier on a framework, but it's much more usual for there to be multiple suppliers on a framework. So it's a many-department relationship with many suppliers. Okay, so why is all that a good thing? That's because once set up, frameworks are generally really easy to do business under. It's usually very fast to form contracts. That can be from days to weeks. And part of the speed is because lots of the legal heavy lifting has already been done. You don't have to discuss core terms and conditions because they've already been set out and agreed in the framework. They tend to be subject specific. So you get ICT, agile frameworks, traffic management frameworks, even stationary frameworks. So it's a place where organisations that want to buy a type of thing get together with organisations that can sell that type of thing. Okay, so if frameworks are so good, why aren't they used for everything? That's because they have restrictions. They're really good for what they're set up to do, but if a buyer wants to do something outside that, or a seller wants to do something outside that, it's very difficult. So the restrictions set up how they can be used. They establish what buyers are part of the framework. They establish what suppliers can be on them. Kind of, we'll get back to that. and exactly what goods or services can be sold and what almost all of the contract terms are. And pretty much none of that can be changed after the framework's been set up. This may be the first time you've heard of a framework, so you won't be on one. Don't panic. Almost all frameworks allow subcontracting. All frameworks have to be published, and the list of suppliers on the framework have to be published. So that means you can contact suppliers on a framework and potentially work out subcontracting deals. Also, lots of frameworks are created all the time, and it's all done in public. You can go to this website, www.gov.uk, find a tender, and you'll find the details there. Thanks for listening. This presentation was brought to you by Buying Machine. We've got a whole lot of other presentations in this area. This one really just scratched the surface, and there's a lot of legal detail about frameworks, how they operate, how you work under them, how you tender under them, and then very specific frameworks, how the DOS framework works, how the G-Cloud framework works. Us and our sister company are on the G-Cloud framework and the DOS framework. So if you're interested in ICT type business, agile type business, and you're not in the framework and you're interested in a subcontracting arrangement or partnership arrangement, get in contact. Thank you.